Now, on Friday, the Supreme Court ruled against judge shopping. What is this? So when Donald Trump got into office, and this is the message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com, which is different from the column, okay? Donald Trump got into office. He wrote a bunch of executive orders trying to overturn the Biden executive orders of 4 years ago. When Biden opened the border and did all that, Republicans did not challenge a lot of that in federal court. They groused about it and complained about it, but they didn't go around and try to undermine executive orders en masse. That's not what they did. Democrats did. So the Democrats would go to Washington State or Massachusetts or California, or one of those, find a judge they knew would rule in a liberal way against Trump. And then they slap on a national injunction. So some pinhead judge in Sacramento could stop an entire executive order for the entire country. Now, I knew this was insane, and so did you. I'm sure you did. Here's what I said on June 4th. Go. So the founding fathers said, we're going to give the president the power to issue executive orders to protect the people and the people's treasury, not to abuse the people. That's what executive orders are supposed to be. Now, they are subject to review from the judiciary, but now that's being abused to the highest level in our history. And the Supreme Court has to rule on it, and I assume they will this month, because after the end of June, they take 3 months off. So I assume that they're going to rule and knock this crazy stuff out to some extent. Hello, Nostradamus, that's me, but it wasn't a hard prediction. Okay, but everything I said came true on Friday, 6-3 ruling. Okay, the justices had limited the use of nationwide injunctions. Okay, they said that if you're a judge and somebody comes and files a petition, you can hear that case, the single case, if the person's in your jurisdiction, but you can't issue a national pause or anything else. So the left went crazy, and the 3 liberal judges, and look, I'm not going to disparage the liberal judges because there are conservative judges, and they vote ideology sometimes too, but the liberal judges had no constitutional basis. So here's what Amy Coney Barrett, Supreme Court Justice who ruled the majority opinion, wrote the majority opinion, I should say. Here's what she said, quote, "We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary." All right. So Ketanji Brown Jackson, appointed by Biden, is probably more liberal than Sotomayor, definitely more than Kagan. And she would, okay, you can't stop this and all that. And the 6 other judges said, this is crazy. That's not what the founders had in mind. And certainly it isn't. All right, but Judge Jackson doesn't care because she views her job as advancing a cause, a liberal cause. But again, some conservatives feel that way too, in my opinion, my humble opinion. All right, so this is an ongoing battle over the Constitution being used for political purposes, but there's no doubt it was in this case. Now, on cable TV, which is sunk into the morass, I don't think it'll ever come out of it, it was predictable. Go.
I was trying to sort out my feelings on this matter, and I came up with a quote from a very smart lawyer, and I just want to quote it because I think she was right when she said it. It just can't be right that one district judge can stop a nationwide policy in its tracks. Justice Elena Kagan in 2022 said that, of course, when we had a Democratic president. Now, she voted against the decision on Friday. It just goes to show you that some of these folks really are hacks.
What the Supreme Court is done, and again, stacked largely by these Trump appointees, is ceding their power under the Constitution, in fact, their responsibility as a judicial branch, they're ceding that to Donald Trump, who is a lawless president.
No, what a bunch of bull that is. Now, the original executive order that sparked all this was President Trump's intention to say no more birthright. Okay, so if you are born here, you are not automatically a citizen. That's what President Trump wanted to do. Now, the Supreme Court did not rule on that. And I don't think they're going to rule in Trump's favor. Okay, it's clear in the Constitution that those words are there. If a person is born in the United States, that person is a citizen. Doesn't matter how they got here. Not a lot of, there's no footnotes. So Senator Van Hollen, who's, about as far left as you get, he's going to be proved wrong. Because I don't think the Supreme Court's going to knock that out of the Constitution. It may be possible they might attach a few things for review of it. But anyway, that has been paused for 30 days. And since the court doesn't come back till late September, I think the pause will be extended. And that's a memo. Another ruling on Friday, Montgomery County, Maryland. Parents sued in federal court saying, look, if the schools in Montgomery County are going to teach about gay stuff and they're going to promote LGBTQ stuff, then we want our kids to be out of the classroom because we don't believe that on religious grounds. Okay? And again, the justices ruled 6-3, same thing, that if you're a religious person who does not believe that the gay lifestyle is accepted by your religion, your kid doesn't have to listen to that. Common sense, right? I believe. So they're not banning the lesson. They're giving the parents a right to take the kid out when that happens. Okay, so the left, of course, went nuts. Go.
Right now, this looks like it affects only books with LGBTQ plus characters, but it very well might extend to science and evolution and all the other things that for some reason are up for debate in this day and age that are rooted in science and understanding, but it very well might upend what we think of as public education.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Okay, I don't think they're going to be imposing evolution on the kids in the classroom. Both should be discussed, though. Why not? Why not discuss the biblical point of view? So, look, there are some fundamentalist religious people who believe Adam and Eve were there, and the snake was chasing them around. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you don't say it's fact. I mean, but you know how it is. What this ruling is all about, is there are many states, Maryland at the top of the list, that want to impose liberal doctrine on the students. That's what they want. Okay? I guess there are some states that want to impose conservative doctrine, maybe Louisiana because they had the Ten Commandment thing, but the liberal states are real active in this group. All right, let's bring in a guy who's smarter than I am, and he can tell me if I'm going wrong here. His name is Michael DiMeo, and he teaches at Widener University Law School, which is in Pennsylvania. First question, Professor, about the judge shopping. It just seems to me that no matter what ideology you are, that you would know one judge just stopping the whole apparatus of executive orders is just blowing up the Constitution. Am I wrong?
Well, you're absolutely right. I thank you very much for having me on, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here. But you're absolutely right in your description of the problem, that having one district judge with the power to issue a universal nationwide injunction prevents other judges from getting involved in issuing opinions on the same issue. And usually the way that you get ultimate resolution of these issues is to have a bunch of cases in the lower courts, each focused on particular plaintiffs. And if there's a disagreement with those lower courts, then the appellate courts can sort out the disagreement. But we don't just pick one district judge as part of some kind of policy-making strategy and let that judge impose an injunction on the entire country unless the Supreme Court gets involved on some kind of emergency basis.
Okay, but the three liberal judges on the Supreme Court surely are intelligent enough to recognize the anarchy and chaos that would come if every party could judge shop on every presidential decision, right? They're not
that
stupid.
is certainly true. Yes, and in fact, as your clip before me pointed out, Justice Kagan has already pointed out that problem.
Yeah, she
during the Biden
contradicted
administration.
herself. So the only conclusion that fair-minded people can come to is that at least three members of the Supreme Court don't care about the Constitution at all. They want to use their power at the nation's highest court to advance their liberal ideology. That's the only conclusion you can come to.
I think what you have is a fundamental disagreement about judicial power. That what the liberal justices see as the role of the federal courts is solving injustice or declaring what the law is. They see the courts as this kind of institution just to get involved and stop illegality whenever they see it. That's not the way the federal courts are supposed to work. And the six justices in the majority correctly pointed out Justice Jackson's flawed understanding of the Constitution in that way. Federal courts are supposed to resolve disputes between parties who are affected by the litigation. And if it turns out that the plaintiff is right and what the government is doing is illegal or unconstitutional, then the district court should enter a remedy that solves that plaintiff's problem.
Right. I mean, the ruling was right, but what disturbs me are these three justices. That's what disturbs me. They want to dismantle the Constitution. They want to dismantle it. And
yeah,
let's be honest about it. They know the anarchy and chaos that would be caused by judge shopping on every single presidential executive order. They understand that. They don't care. They're almost subversive when it comes to the Constitution of the United States. Last word.
I think Justice Barrett had it exactly right when she said that Justice Jackson would impose an imperial judiciary. And I think that's what you're referring to when you're saying subvert the Constitution. You say judges are up here and everybody else has to follow what the judges say. That's not the original understanding of the Constitution.
But I carry it further than that. These justices are in business to advance a liberal ideology. They're using their position for politics, not to really analyze what the founding fathers had in mind. That's my point of view. Do you concur with that?
I agree. I think that being an activist or what we call a result-oriented judge is just about the worst thing that you can be on the court.
Right, and they got three of them.
It seems to me that that's what was motivating them.
Well, Sotomayor,
policy-oriented.
I know this for a fact, Sotomayor wants out. She's tired. She doesn't feel well. But she's hanging on because she doesn't want Trump to appoint the next judge. So we'll see how that evolves. Professor, thanks very much. Happy 4th of July. We appreciate the help.